Hey guys, so like I said at the end of my Disney vlog series, I wanted to do a review video on the trip. Now this is going to be part summarising the trip, but also like reviewing it in regards to things I did this year that I might have done last year, things that I found worked and things that didn't work for me. So yeah, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the resort. Now, if you watched my video from last year, you'll know that I stayed in one of the value resorts. I stayed in All Star Music. Now, for what it was, like what I was using for was literally just sleeping. It was fine. But this year I decided to treat myself and go to a moderate. So this year I stayed in Coronado Springs. Now, I love this resort. If I ever go back, I would try and stay there again if I can, if like price depending, because it is a moderate, so it is more expensive. It's not expensive as the deluxe is, but it's definitely more than the values. But yeah, I loved the resort. It was very picturesque. The location was great. Like when it came to Blizzard Beach, I could walk there if I wanted to. It was literally just across the road. It was about 10 minutes, I think, on all the buses to get to any of the parks. So the location was great. There was a slight downside, which didn't really affect my holiday in any way, but they're currently building the Riviera resort right next door, so there was quite a lot of construction in the area. But apart from that, I loved the resort. I love the fact that because it's so big that you also have buses dotted around the resort. So there were 4 and I was in building 5, and the first means that my nearest bus stop was bus stop 2, which is actually the first one that picks up and drops off. So especially when it started to rain, it was a great location. Now, the one thing that I had a little issue with was to do with the mug. Now I'll come back to the mug itself in a little bit, but I had a refillable mug as part of my dining plan, and you can just go to either of the 2 quick services, one that was near the Digside pool, which you would have seen in the videos, and the other one was the restaurant in the main building. Now, the only problem was my building was kind of halfway between the 2, and they closed at certain times. So there was one night in particular I wanted to drink when I got back from the park, but I only had 5 minutes to get there. So that's the only downside. If you wanted to refill your mug, you had a bit of a walk. It wasn't too bad, like it was only like 5 minutes, so I was just being lazy more than anything. But yeah, that was my only downside to the resort. Apart from that, I completely loved it. However, there was one thing I noticed as soon as I got there, and I will tell you guys about. Because there's a lake in the centre of the resort, there is wildlife in that lake, which includes snakes and alligators. Now, I didn't see any alligators, but I did see a snake the one night. So if you do stay there, be aware of that. Yeah, the other thing another thing I noticed about the resort, which I liked but didn't take advantage of, was it actually has a running track, which, I say a running track, it had a running route, so you could run around like the lake and in between the buildings. Now, the track wasn't fully in use because they're doing some construction, so part of the path's closed off. You could still run the entirety of the lake, however, and I did see a lot of other guests making use of that. So if I do go back, I think I would like to use that. I would like to take my stuff with me and actually go running in the mornings, because I'm one of those people, I wake up quite early, so I think it would have just been nice to get up in the morning while it was quiet and just go for a run. Sticking with the resort, I'm going to talk about mousekeeping. Now this I'm going to definitely compare to last year. Now last year I got offered to turn down mousekeeping when I checked in, and I said no, I want to keep mousekeeping. Now that didn't benefit me because they were coming every single day and I'm on my own. I wasn't spending any time in the resort in my room really, so it wasn't really worth them coming every day. So this year I decided if they offered me that again, that I would turn it down. So when I checked in this year, they did offer me, do you want to turn down mousekeeping? And they explained how it worked. So I said yes, and obviously they gave me that gift voucher. Not that they lied, but maybe I misunderstood. When they were explaining it to me, it made it sound like mousekeeping wouldn't necessarily come every day, but they would still come around every few days and freshen up, give you fresh towels and that. The entire 2 weeks I was there, mousekeeping came once. Now, my room wasn't messy in the sense, but I probably could have done with them coming to give me fresh towels. Now, that being said, I was told when they were explaining this that if I did ever want any of them to come, that all I had to do was either phone them up or go down to reception and ask, oh, can they send mousekeeping? But yeah, I think when it comes to mousekeeping like that, I think it would be nice if they just went around like maybe every 3 days or something, just to give fresh towels. Like I said, yes, I could have phoned or arranged to have mousekeeping come, but I'm kind of not that confident when it comes to using the phone, so I felt a little awkward having to do that, so I never actually did. But yeah, I wish I had, but I think when it comes to mousekeeping, it depends on your personal needs. If you're like a family of 5 staying in a room and you're going to be quite messy, then definitely keep mousekeeping. If you're someone like me who's not going to be in the room that much and all you need is fresh towels, then probably turning it down mousekeeping is probably better for you. Like I said, for me they only came once, but that was because I just didn't feel comfortable phoning up and asking could they come and clean my room. But yeah, my room wasn't that messy, my bins didn't necessarily need emptying, it was just I needed more towels. But if I was that desperate, like, I had bought towels in the end because of various reasons, and I could have always just gone to the pool and taken towels from there. So it wasn't the end of the world, but I kind of wish that with the mousekeeping thing that they just kept it more basic and come around every few days maybe. Didn't even have to make my bed, just to maybe give fresh supplies. But yeah, apart from that, mousekeeping was great. Well, from what I saw of it, the 2 times they did come, which was when I arrived and obviously the day they came during the holiday. They also leave towels in like the shapes of Mickey and that, which I loved, and because I didn't know when they were coming, I always leave tips for mousekeeping anyway. Now, what I read when it comes to that is to leave a tip for $1 per person, then +1. But for me, I felt a bit stingy leaving like a $2 tip, so I would leave about $5. And like I said, they didn't come that often, so it didn't actually cost me that much. But yeah, when mousekeeping do come, I know from last year, they are great. They always, like, if you've taken stuff with you, like soft toys, if you've got kids with you, they do tend to like leave little like surprises for you, in the sense that they'll make little sceneries and that up. So mousekeeping are great. From my experience last year, they were great. I just wish they would have come a bit more this year. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the dining plan. Now, last year I didn't do the dining plan, but this year I did. I opted for the quick service dining plan. As part of that, you do get a refillable mug. Now, I'm going to talk about the mug separately, but for now I'm going to just focus on the basic dining plan. Now, with the quick service dining plan, you get 2 meals a day and 2 snacks. Now, meal-wise, that was fine for me. I usually only eat 2 meals a day anyway, so that was great. It was the snacks I struggled with a bit more, because by the last day I had 4 of my snacks left, because I just found that I wasn't using them that much. And there's a lot more limitations on the snacks as to what you can spend them on. But yeah, I think convenience wise, I loved the dining plan. Like, if I was just going down for breakfast in my resort, it meant that I didn't actually have to take anything with me. As long as I had my magic band, which they load you credits onto, I was fine. And as part of the meal credit, as well as getting the food, you also get a drink. Now obviously I had my refillable mug, but so breakfast I would always get an orange juice anyway, so that was fine. And then in the evenings, if I was in the resort, I would just get a dessert. But obviously most of the times I was in the park, so I would get a drink when I was in the park, just because by then I've been drinking water most of the day, so I just wanted a soda without having to use my snack credit. Yeah, with snack credits, there was I found a little bit more limitation on those. So you could use them to buy ice cream, you could use them in Starbucks, which I never did. I think you could buy pretzels with them, you could get like a box of popcorn opposed to the tub, and you could also get like drinks. You could use snack credits for drinks as well. But there were a lot of snack, and like I also used them to get a lot around Epcot, but there were also a lot of things that weren't on the plan. So like I mentioned in one of my Epcot videos, I wanted to get a pretzel from German Pavilion, but but those were part of the dining plan, so I couldn't use a snack credit, and it just felt like a waste. Same for in France. I did get the brioche like ice cream, but that wasn't a snack credit. I actually paid for that myself. But overall, if you just want like an ice cream or something, it was great. It was convenient. Like I said, it saved me having to get my wallet out of my bag, and it was all just on my Magic Band. Whether I would recommend the dining plan, I think that's something you'd have to decide yourself. Looking at it, I made a note of what I would have paid for my food. I kept all the receipts and logged it all, and I actually would have spent the exact same amount of money. Now, within that calculation, I'm not including Be Our Guest, because Be Our Guest is actually really expensive for breakfast. It was a set price regardless of what you had, so it was $28 plus tax, plus that doesn't include the drink if you wanted one. So if I wasn't on a dining plan, I wouldn't have done that experience. But because dining plan literally covers it, regardless of the cost, it recovers the meal. I obviously did go to Be Our Guest twice, so the dining plan was kind of worth it in regards to that I got to do a nice experience in a nice restaurant. Well, a quick service restaurant anyway, that I wouldn't have done otherwise. But aside from that, I literally looked at, I think I saved about 10 cents. All the food I bought, I probably would have bought without the dining plan. A lot of it I had last year when I didn't have the dining plan. So I think if you're thinking of trying to decide whether to do dining plan or not, do your research, look up the menus for the restaurants you're probably going to end up in, look at the prices and work out whether it's going to be cost effective for you. Like I said, for me, it didn't cost me any more and it didn't save me any money, but because of the convenience of it, I probably would do it again. And like I said, I did get the snack credits in the end. I did use them. I used them to buy snacks for the plane. But I think the only, like I said, the only issue with, you've got to be aware as where you can use your snack credits. Meal credits were a little easier. You could go to any quick service anywhere on property. But yeah, dining plan, like I said, do your research, and that's something you'd have to decide for yourself whether you want to do it or not. For me, it did work, and I probably will do it again. But I think it does vary person to person whether it's worth it or not. Like I mentioned, I did have the quick service dining plan, and as part of that I got a refillable mug. Now, if you're not going to do the dining plan, I would still recommend getting the refillable mug. It was about $19 plus tax, but it would very quickly pay for itself. Drinks on property were about $4, I think. And obviously the refillable mug you can only use in resorts anyway, but it's about $4 for a drink. And that, obviously for 2 weeks especially, it very quickly adds up. But with the refillable mug, you just pay the one price at the start of the holiday and you can just fill it up in any resort hotel. So I filled mine up in the Contemporary, I think I filled it up in the Polynesian at one point, Animal Lodge. So any of the hotel, so I would go out to the parks to the nearest hotel and fill up as well. And obviously I was filling it up quite a few times when I was in the resort. It does both hot and cold drinks, and it does keep them warm quite a while. I saw a lot of people, I did this myself, and I saw a lot of people doing, they would take the mugs to the parks. You can't fill them up in the parks, but what people would do, they would fill them up in the water fountains, which is what I did. So I could just have water. Although when it comes to the water fountains, be careful which one you use. I will get to that in a minute. But yeah, I'd also see people, they might go into a quick service, get the drink and then just pour it into that. Now I did that more with the ice. I'd get ice water in the quick service, because you can go to any quick service in Disney and just ask for an ice water and it's completely free. So what I would do, when I was getting my meals, I would ask, can I have an ice water as well please? And I would tip that in and then top up with water from the water fountain. So yeah, the refillable mug is convenient. Like I said, I had like a little clip so I could clip it onto my backpack that I'd taken with me anyway. And for cost, like I said, upfront cost, you know, it's about $20 odd, which is kind of a lot. But I think I was filling it up like 4 or 5 times a day, so it didn't take long for me to get my money back then from it. So if you're doing the dining plan, that's automatically included. If you're not doing the dining plan, I would still recommend buying a refillable mug, because it's definitely worth the money, and it's so convenient as well. So yeah. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is pressed pennies. Now, I did this last year, I filled up 3 books. I did it again this year, almost filled 4 books. I filled up the penny sections, but not the quarters. But I wanted to just give my opinion on pressed pennies. Now, the pressed pennies are great. They're reasonably inexpensive. Well, they are expensive. You're paying like 50 cents plus the penny at the cheapest. And Disney have kind of cottoned on and starting to charge a little more now as well. So there were a lot of new machines there this year where instead of putting in 2 quarters and a penny, you actually pay $1 and it'll provide the penny for you. So instead of paying, so it's doubled in price. Last year as well as this year, there were machines that are touchscreen. With these, once again it's $1 per penny, but it was something like if you bought 8 pennies from the machine, it only cost you $5, you would save money. But once again, that's very expensive just for a pressed piece of metal. So yeah, the one thing I did struggle with when it came to the pressed pennies was actually getting change. A lot of the machines are still the old style where you have to put the coins in yourself, but obviously you need 2 quarters and a penny, and particularly a shiny penny. And on the whole of property, I only know of one change machine that actually dispenses pennies. The rest all dispense quarters. So the quarter ones there were 2 in the shooting gallery in Frontierland in Magic Kingdom. There was another one that's near the restrooms in Magic Kingdom that's between Frontierland and Adventureland. There was another one that never worked for me that was in just as you come out of Tower Terror ride, but before the gift shop. There was another one in the Contemporary Resort which also wasn't working. But yeah, it was really hard to find the change machines, or if you could find them, a lot of the time they were out of order, which isn't great. But nearly all the change machines were quarter ones, and I needed pennies as much as I needed quarters. Obviously I needed more quarters than I needed pennies, but it did get to a point where I was struggling to find pennies. And on the entire property, there's only one I know of, and that is in the land in Epcot. Now the problem is the land is now due to be closed soon for refurbishments, so I don't know what they're going to do with that machine. But yeah, be aware, if you're American it's not so bad I suppose, because you can save up before the trip. But if you're coming from outside of the US, be aware that it is quite hard to get hold of the coins that you're going to need for the pressed penny machines. The other issue I had with collecting the pressed pennies, like I said, as well as doing pressed pennies, they also do pressed quarters. And when it comes to the pressed quarters, they're few and far between and they're very hard to find. Most of the hotels, I think, I'm not sure on this, have at least one machine, but within that one machine is only 1 coin, and within the box that I filled, you meant to have 9 slots. So I struggled getting quarter ones this year because I got a lot of them last year. I didn't really want repeats. So I think the only place I managed to get them easily is in the Rainforest cafes. Other than that, I found them really hard to get hold of. And before I left, found a website online that lists the locations of all the pennies and quarter machines, but I couldn't, even with that list I still struggled to find them. I don't know if it was just that I wasn't seeing the machines, or if it was just that they'd moved them since the list had been made. But yeah, the advice I would give if you want to do pressed pennies is, 1, make sure you've got as much change as you can get in regards to quarters and pennies, but also be aware that they're quite hard to find as well, and that when it comes to the books you might not find the quarters as easily as you think. The only other issue I had was the length of time I was there. Now last year I went for a week, this year I went for 2 weeks. Last year a week wasn't enough, but this year I found 2 weeks too much. So I think if you're traveling on your own particularly, maybe 2 weeks is a bit too long, because you are on your own and you're not, if you're like me, I wasn't getting that much human interaction. I would talk to like people here and there maybe, but I was pretty much on my own the entire time. So eventually you do get a little bored, and it did by the time I got about halfway through the second week, I was ready to come home. Now obviously if I went with other people, I'd probably want 2 weeks because there is a lot to do. So if you've never been to Disney before, and especially if you're traveling on your own, my advice is to go somewhere between a week and 2 weeks, just so you have enough time to get everything done, but it's not too long that you're going to get bored at the end. Overall, I loved the holiday. The downsides were things that were obviously out of my control and out of Disney's control. In regards to the weather, they can't control the weather, although apparently some people do think they can. So the rain obviously put a dampener on a lot of my plans because it limited times I had in the park and what I could do. The other issue, which I am going to give advice on, if you're thinking of going to Disney World, I wouldn't advise going in early May. The reason for that is they actually have an infestation of what bugs called love bugs. I will put a picture up here. They're disgusting looking things. They don't have a purpose at all, but they were absolutely everywhere. You couldn't sit down because they were just literally swarmed on all the benches, and when you're trying to eat, they're just everywhere, and that kind of put a dampener on, especially like with little kids. Little kids would be scared of them. They couldn't hurt them, but you just hear screaming constantly. You've got people running away from them. So my advice, if you are going to go, be aware if you're going to go in early May that there are a lot of bugs around, in particular at that time of year. Like I said, the other downside was the weather, but that's something that can't be controlled. There probably was probably more things I could have done, and if I was with other people I probably could have found things to do, but the weather definitely did put a dampener on. Yeah, the other thing I struggled with was just the heat this year. I don't know what it was. It wasn't necessarily constantly hotter than it was last year, but there were definitely days that they were hotter. I think there was one day where it got to about 34 degrees, and the problem is that's around midday when they're doing the parade in Magic Kingdom. So after that I was just wiped out, and I'm one of those people, I have to be very careful in the heat because I am prone to getting ill with that kind of heat. So I have to be very cautious with it, and I did have more effect of it this year than I did last year. But yeah, it didn't necessarily ruin the trip overall. It did mean that I was ill a bit more this year than last year, which kind of put a little dampener on things. But yeah, I know, like I said, this video has been a little critical and makes it sound like I didn't enjoy the holiday. That's not the slightest bit true. I really enjoyed it. I loved aspects of it. Like I said, I wish it didn't rain as much, but that's something that can't be controlled. But yeah, it was still a great holiday. But I'm also at that point now where I think if I do ever go back to Disney, I'm not going to do any more solo trips. I think I'm at that point where I want more people to share. I wanted to be able to share that experience with people. I know my friends have seen like my Instagrams about it, and they said they want to come and they would love to go. So I think if I ever do go back, it's going to be with other people now. I think I'm done with solo trips to Disney World. As much as I love the place, there's only so many times you can go on your own. But yeah, so overall, comparing this year to last year, it was kind of a mixed bag, because last year was all exciting. I'd never experienced it before. This year I went more knowing what to expect, so it was kind of a mixed bag in that sense. So I wasn't as excited for the holiday overall, but I did enjoy it just as much as last year, and I was a lot more prepared. But yeah, I think overall it was a good holiday. Maybe I didn't enjoy it as much as last year, but I think that was just my mindset more this year when I went, opposed to anything that was wrong with the holiday itself. If you are going to go to Disney World, I'd recommend the Colorado Springs Resort. It's really great. It's, like I said, it's not the cheapest, but you do kind of get your value for money with it. When it comes to the dining plan, do your research on that, whether it's going to be worth the money for you. For me, it was, and convenience wise it was great, but like I said, that was just for me. For other people that might not be the case. regardless whether you're doing the design plan, definitely get the refillable mug. It's only valid for the duration of your stay, and you can only refill it in resorts, but that's any resort on property, any of the hotels, be it value, moderate or deluxe. And although the upfront cost is a little on the pricey side, it pays for itself within a couple of days. So definitely get a resort mug when you go to Disney World and you're staying on resort in property. When it comes to mousekeeping, once again, it varies depending on your needs. If you're going to be in the resort a lot and there's more of you, definitely keep mousekeeping. If you're traveling on your own like I am, or you're not going to be in the hotel that much, maybe turn it down, but be willing to have to go to reception or make the phone call to say when you do need them to come, because they will not come otherwise. So overall, it was a good holiday. I did enjoy it. Maybe sometimes it may not have seemed it, but I think it was just I was in a weird mindset this year when I was there. But yeah, it was a great holiday. I'm glad I went back. I am already starting to miss it a little bit, but I can't see me going back anytime soon because it's quite an expensive holiday. So I hope you enjoyed my vlog series and you got a better idea of my thoughts on some of the aspects. And I will see you guys next time for my review video.